Picture this. You're driving down a dark, really quiet winter road in New Hampshire.
And it's February, so we're talking about that bitterly cold air.
The kind that actually physically hurts your lungs the second you step outside, right? Massive snowbanks line this rural highway. And suddenly up ahead, you see a car that's crashed.
So naturally, you pull over.
Exactly. You're a local bus driver just finishing your route, and you see this young woman. Her car has spun out, facing the wrong direction. The airbags have deployed, but she's up, she's moving around. You roll down your window to offer help, and she refuses.
And she doesn't just refuse, she tells a very specific lie.
Right, she says she's already called for roadside assistance. But, you know, cell service out there is practically non-existent, so you drive off to notify the authorities anyway. Minutes later, the police arrive. The car is sitting there, locked. Her personal items are still inside. But the young woman has completely vanished into the freezing night.
And in the pristine snow surrounding that crash site, there are absolutely no clear footprints leading away.
It's a scenario that it seems to break the basic laws of physics. Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to step directly into the freezing dark of that winter night in 2004.
Yeah, and we've got a stack of incredibly sobering sources on the table today to help us do that.
We do. We're looking at the official missing person reports from the New Hampshire Department of Justice Cold Case Unit, some detailed case summaries that map out the precise timeline, and official statements and campaign materials from the Maura Murray official family website.
But we aren't just doing a broad overview of the story.
No, we have a very specific mission for this deep dive. We're going to zero in on one agonizingly narrow window of time. Just 10 minutes. The 10 minutes between that car crash and the moment a young woman seemingly evaporated into thin air.
What's fascinating here is that by restricting our focus to that impossibly tight time frame, we can actually strip away a lot of the external noise. By examining the harsh environmental factors of that winter road and the intense psychological tension of those few minutes, we can really start to understand why this case has baffled the world since 2004.
Now, if you're joining us for this, you likely already know the basics of who was behind the wheel. Maura Murray. She was a 21-year-old standout student athlete from Hanson, Massachusetts.
Very capable, highly driven.
Right. She was an avid runner, a hiker who loved the outdoors, and importantly, she had previously attended West Point before transferring to the nursing program at UMass Amherst. But we need to look at that background through a specific lens today. What does that resume tell us about her cognitive state in a crisis?
That is the crucial context, I think. We are talking about someone with military-level conditioning. At West Point, you're trained to compartmentalize stress. You push through extreme physical discomfort.
She's not someone who just freezes up.
Exactly. This is an individual accustomed to endurance and discipline. So when we evaluate her reactions on the night of the crash, we have to remember we aren't looking at someone who is easily paralyzed by fear or physical challenges.
Which makes the events of February 9, 2004 even more complex. You probably already know about her unexplained departure from campus, the bizarre email to her professors claiming there had been a death in her family.
Which is a complete fabrication, yeah.
Right. Then there's the ATM withdrawal, the trip to the liquor store, packing her belongings into her black four-door Saturn sedan. We even have that ATM surveillance footage of her in a dark jacket and jeans. But let's pause and talk about the tech landscape of 2004 for a second, because it's wild to think about now.
It really was a totally different world.
Today, you can't go to the grocery store without your phone, your watch, and your car pinging a dozen cell towers. In early 2004, we were still in the era of printing out MapQuest directions.
Flip phones were the norm.
Yeah, and coverage, especially in rural New England, was a complete dead zone.
Yeah.
Disappearing, whether you meant to or not, was logistically much easier. But navigating without a digital safety net was so much harder.
And this is where we have to synthesize the underlying stressors the sources point to. In the period leading up to this drive, Maura was dealing with a pretty heavy confluence of pressures.
These were piling up.
They really were. A recent issue with unauthorized credit card use, mounting academic pressure in a demanding nursing program, and some significant emotional strain. When you look at her actions making hotel inquiries, packing her car, buying alcohol, it paints a picture of someone seeking a temporary escape.
She wanted a breather.
She wanted a few days to reset alone.
But she didn't tell a single soul where she was going. Not her friends, not her family. She just embarked on this 2.5-hour drive north toward the White Mountains.
Exactly. But we have to be very, very careful with how we interpret that. While those personal stressors strongly indicate a desire to get away from her daily life, they do not automatically explain what happened next. Stress might explain the drive, but stress does not equal a flawless disappearance.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the physical scene where her journey abruptly ends. It's approximately 7:27 p.m. on Route 112, which is also known as Wild Amanuensis Road in Haverhill, New Hampshire.
A notoriously tricky road.
Very. Maura's Saturn sedan fails to negotiate a sharp curve and spins out. It's a single car accident, but the impact with the snowbank or the trees is hard enough that both the driver and passenger airbags deploy.
And we need to calmly analyze the brutal reality of this specific environment. It's February in northern New Hampshire. It's deeply rural. It's pitch black with absolutely no streetlights.
And freezing.
Bitterly freezing. We're talking about temperatures hovering around 10 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The road is carved through this dense, unforgiving landscape, flanked by heavy woods and lined with large plowed snowbanks. It is an incredibly hostile environment.
At those temperatures, your motor skills degrade so fast if you aren't wearing heavy winter gear.
They do. And right in the middle of this freezing, pitch black reality, an interaction happens.
The bus driver?
Right. A private citizen, a local bus driver, pulls up. He speaks to Maura across the snowbank. He notes that she seems shaken up by the accident, maybe shivering, but importantly, she doesn't appear to be bleeding or seriously injured.
He offers to help. He even offers to let her wait in the warm bus.
And she explicitly declines it and tells him that very specific lie about already calling AAA.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychological strain of this exact moment is just immense. Put yourself in her shoes. You're a young woman fleeing significant personal stressors back at school. You're trying to fly under the radar.
And suddenly your vehicle is disabled in the dark.
In the freezing cold, miles from your destination. And here comes a stranger. Why refuse a warm bus? Why lie about calling for help when you almost certainly know your cell phone has no signal out there?
See, a lot of people read that as a calculated move to maintain control.
But doesn't lying to a bus driver about calling AAA seem more panicked than controlled? To me, it's the flight response kicking in. It's the action of someone who desperately wants to avoid official police involvement because she knows she has alcohol in the car, or she's recently been in another minor accident back in Massachusetts, and she just wants the problem to go away.
That's a very fair assessment of the cognitive load she was under. Whether it was calculated control or sheer panic, the result was the same. She wanted the bus driver to leave so she could figure out her next move without interference.
She was trying to buy time.
She was. But that specific decision to wave off sets the clock ticking on one of the most baffling mysteries in modern history.
Which brings us to the core focus of this deep dive, the missing 10 minutes. Let's lay out the timeline exactly as the sources provided. The bus driver leaves and calls the police from his home nearby. The crash is officially reported at approximately 7:27 p.m.
About 10 minutes later.
Right. At 7:46 p.m., the North Haverhill police arrive at the crash scene. They find the car. It's locked. Her personal items, makeup, clothes, some of the alcohol, are still inside the vehicle. But Maura is gone.
And we must draw your attention to the most baffling environmental detail of this entire scene: the snow.
It's the detail everyone comes back to.
Because winter is an impeccable record keeper. Think about the physics of a snowbank. When a plow pushes snow to the side of a road, it creates a berm of varied density. If a human being tries to walk over or through a freshly plowed snowbank, they are going to leave deep, unmistakable impressions.
And investigators noted that in the pristine snow surrounding the crash site, there were absolutely no clear footprints leading away from the road and into the woods.
None. And the police didn't just rely on their eyes. Law enforcement brought in search dogs.
And this is where it gets really chilling. The dogs picked up her scent from an item of clothing left in the car. They tracked it a very short distance down the road, maybe 100 yards, and then the scent just abruptly stopped.
It didn't veer off into the trees.
No. It just vanished right in the middle of the road.
The forensics of scent tracking in sub-zero temperatures are fascinating, but also tricky. Extreme cold actually preserves scent particles initially, dropping them close to the ground.
Though the dry winter air can cause those particles to dissipate faster over time.
True. But the dogs weren't confused. They tracked a strong, linear path down the asphalt that ended definitively. In forensic terms, an abrupt end to a scent trail on a roadway almost universally implies that the individual entered a vehicle.
10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes.
That is all the time that passed between the bus driver pulling away and the police cruisers rolling up. Think about how fast 10 minutes goes by. Just sit with that for a second.
In that fraction of an hour, the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee, a person simply vanished from the grid.
It's incredibly eerie. Sitting with the reality of that narrow window is deeply unsettling, which is why, naturally, people have spent 2 decades trying to fill that void. So let's examine the primary theories.
But let's do it with the balanced skepticism they require, relying strictly on the official reports and the physical environment.
Exactly. Theory 1 is the most obvious assumption people make, that she just wandered off to avoid a DUI, that she succumbed to the elements.
It's the standard baseline for any winter disappearance. The theory suggests she walked down the road, ducked into the dense woods to hide when she saw the police lights, got disoriented, and eventually suffered hypothermia.
The timeline of hypothermia in 10-degree weather is aggressive, isn't it?
Very. Within an hour, confusion and lethargy set in. Within a few hours, it's fatal.
But the facts of the investigation heavily push back against this. There were massive, extensive searches conducted by multiple law enforcement agencies, community volunteers, private organizations.
They had helicopters with thermal imaging.
Cracking dogs, line searches, combing the woods thoroughly over the years. They found nothing. No backpack, no clothing, no Maura.
And again, it's vital to remember the snow. You cannot walk into a snow-covered New Hampshire forest in February without displacing snow. The perimeter of the road was unbroken.
Right. And there have been so many false alarms that just compound the family's trauma. The sources mention an incident where bone fragments were discovered at Loon Mountain.
Oh, the true crime community went wild over that.
They really did. But the New Hampshire State Police investigated, ran the forensic DNA testing, and definitive official press releases confirmed those fragments were not Maura Murray. It was a complete dead end.
Which naturally forces us to consider Theory 2, based on the scent trail. If she didn't walk into the woods, did someone driving by pick her up? A crime of opportunity.
Given the abrupt end to the dog's track, this strongly implies she entered a vehicle.
But we have to maintain our skepticism here too, and look at the statistical constraints. The time frame is just so incredibly tight.
Under 10 minutes.
Right. For a crime of opportunity to occur, a predator would have to be driving down that exact, lightly traveled rural road at that exact 10-minute window. They would have to convince a hyper-vigilant young woman who had just refused help from a friendly, uniformed bus driver to get into their car.
Or force her into it.
Or force her, yes.
Yeah.
And then drive away before the police cruisers rolled up.
And the official reports note absolutely no signs of a struggle at the scene, no scuff marks on the asphalt, no dropped items, and no screams were heard by the neighbors who lived just down the street. Just a silent highway.
So what if it wasn't a predator? What if it was a tandem driver? Someone she knew following her?
That's a popular variation of the theory. But again, it lacks physical evidence. There's no record of her communicating with anyone to coordinate a tandem drive.
Which brings a lot of people back to Theory 3, her state of mind before she left. The academic pressure, the credit card issue, the fake email to her professors. Did she use the crash as an improvised opportunity to intentionally walk away from her life?
I just struggle with this one. I mean, could a 21-year-old orchestrate a complete disappearance on the fly?
It's crucial to remember that intention does not erase the physical mystery. Even if we assume, for the sake of argument, that she wanted to start a brand new life, the logistical reality of executing a flawless disappearance in under 10 minutes from a disabled vehicle in rural New Hampshire is staggering.
Especially when you look at the aftermath. Since that night in 2004, there has been zero financial activity on her bank accounts. Her cell phone was never turned on again.
Zero verified communication with friends or family.
Zero confirmed sightings. To disappear so completely without a trace requires cash, fake identification, and a level of planning that completely contradicts spinning out into a snowbank and leaving your favorite belongings behind in a locked car.
It's a logistical nightmare to explain. What should have been a standard police incident report, a simple municipal form for a spun-out car on a winter night morphed into a void that has consumed investigators, the public, and most importantly, her family, for decades.
And the scale of the attention this case has received is just phenomenal. It truly became one of the first massive mysteries of the digital age. This single car accident became one of the most followed missing persons cases globally.
The sources highlight how it's been featured everywhere. ABC's 2020, Dr. Oz, The Oxygen Channel, People magazine.
But sometimes that media circus actually hinders the real police work, generating thousands of useless tips.
Yet the New Hampshire Cold Case unit is still actively treating her disappearance as suspicious. They haven't closed the file. Just recently, they released an updated 2024 FBI age progression image.
And the science behind those is actually pretty incredible, isn't it?
It really is. Forensic artists don't just guess what someone looks like 20 years later. They use complex software that analyzes familial DNA aging patterns. They look at photos of parents and siblings at the target age to modify the facial structure, skin elasticity, and feature placement of the missing person.
So they released this projection of what Maura might look like today, hoping it might trigger a memory or generate new viable leads.
Figure.
But behind all of those international headlines, the forums and the FBI projections, there is a family that is still actively, painfully searching. The sources from the official family website highlight this relentless fight. Her father, Fred, and her sister, Julie, still celebrate Maura's birthday together. They recently celebrated what would have been her 39th birthday.
They are constantly advocating for her, fighting to keep her name in the public eye.
Yes, and they've had to fight for every single inch. They recently fought a massive bureaucratic battle just to get a historical marker placed at the crash site.
They were fighting against arbitrary denials by the state's Division of Historical Resources, right?
The state initially deemed the site not historically significant enough, but the family pushed back. And they managed the blue ribbon tree on Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire, right where the car was found, to keep her memory visible to anyone driving by.
They are determined to keep the focus on Maura as a human being, not just a true crime puzzle for people to solve on the internet, but a daughter and a sister.
So what does this all mean for how we remember her? There is a really touching detail in the campaign materials that speaks perfectly to who Maura was. Her supporters, along with her sister Julie, hold an annual event called the Maura Workout.
They run 2 miles and then they complete 82 burpees.
Yeah, and the sources describe them doing this wet with sweat and rain, honoring that sheer athletic grit and endurance Maura had at West Point and UMass. The update on the site simply notes, Maura would approve.
And then there is a quote from her father, Fred Murray, that just rings out so clearly through all the noise of the last 20 years. "We are coming for you, kid."
It's a powerful, grounding reminder of the enduring love of a family. They refuse to let the mechanics of the mystery overshadow the person they lost. As we synthesize everything we've looked at today, you're left with this incredibly harsh reality.
The timeline is fixed.
The environmental data is fixed, the car remained, the personal belongings remained. But the young woman did not.
This raises an important question, something for you to consider long after we wrap up today. As the case summaries note, winter is traditionally a season that preserves things.
The cold slows decay.
Right. The snow freezes footprints, locking an exact physical record of movement into the ground for anyone to read. But in the case of Maura Murray, the winter environment only preserved questions. It is a terrifying testament to the fragility of time.
It really makes you think about how quickly life can pivot.
The next time you're driving down a quiet, dark road at night, I want you to look at the dashboard clock and think about what can actually happen in the span of just 10 minutes. Did she step off the road and into the woods, leaving no trace in the snow? Did she step into a stranger's car, trusting the wrong person in a moment of freezing desperation? Or did she step into a life that no one would ever recognize?
10 minutes. That's all it took for an entire life to vanish.
It's a haunting thought.
And one that hasn't let go of investigators for 2 decades. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep asking questions, but most importantly, remember the human being at the center of the mystery. We'll see you next time.